Hello and welcome back to the Tin Barn. I'm Pragmatic Lee, and today's video is going to be somewhat of a repeat of a little project I did a couple years ago and recorded. But recently a friend was here in the Tin Barn and we were sitting around chatting, and he asked me about these blocks of steel hanging on the pegboard over here and what they were used for. Of course, I told him the story of what my grandfather called his anvil that was lost for many years and then found again. And the other ones, this one right here in particular, I did a project on. Its main purpose, when I make these, fold these little tin trays out, I use this primarily, set it up in a corner and use a small ball peen hammer and just soften these corners a little bit. That was the primary use of that. But he was most interested in this when I told him what I used it for. This is just a flat piece, about 5/8 by 6 inches by maybe 2 inches. And I use this primarily just on the bench. Set it on the bench when I need to strike something pretty hard. Don't want to walk outside to the anvil out there, or it's not even worth going to the vise for. Couple holes in it just to push pins out as well, drive pins out. And I told him this was made from a piece of old railroad iron. And he was kind of interested in that and said if I ever got caught up on projects and had a piece of iron that I could make one out of, he'd sure like to have one for his workbench. So that's what we're going to do today. Sometime back I came across a piece of railroad iron, I don't know, about maybe 18 inches, 2 foot long, and there was about 18 inches off the end of it that the bottom of the rail, bottom of the track had been cut off, and the only thing that was left was the top piece of the rail. And I cut that into 3 pieces. I've got 2 of them left. One of them, I made another one of these little bench top anvils for my great nephew. But I'm going to take this one today, and without a whole lot of narration, I'll tell you at each stage what I'm about to do, but I won't try to walk you through every step of it. But I'm going to carry this over to the dirty side of the tin barn first and wire wheel it, just get some of the major surface rust off the top. Then we're going to put it in the mill. This is a torch cut on here, so that's going to be pretty hard, but we're going to put it in the mill. And I'm going to come in from the side with a roughing end mill and try to attack this this hardened torch area from the side. And we'll rough in all 4 sides of it on the mill. We'll also square off the ends as well. Drill a couple holes, 1 in each end, just to use, again, to drive pins out of small shafts or whatever. Then we'll go to the surface grinder and put a rough surface grinder finish on it. Then chamfer the edges and then put a final grind on it. So like I say, I'm not going to try to narrate every little thing I'm doing, but I will introduce each step or each procedure as we get to it. So let's turn to the lathe now. I'm sorry, let's turn to the mill now. Alright, I'm over at the mill now, and as I say, what I'm going to do is try to attack this hardened torch cut area from the side. So we're going to come down and work our way across the piece until we're down to this edge. Okay, we're getting ready to do our last pass on this run. We've got rid of all that bad torch cut. So now I'm just going to run across here one more time, back up, go down, and keep working my way across until I've got a flat. Okay, I finished all the rough milling on it. I'm going to put a couple holes in it now. The one I showed you at the beginning of the video got on my bench. I put the holes about 1 inch from the end. But I found sometimes driving pins out that it would be better if the hole was a little closer, a little further in. So what I'm going to do is find the center here and then go about 3/4 of an inch on each side of 0. I'll put a 1/4 inch hole and a 3/8 hole. Alright, for all intents and purposes, this would work just fine as a bench anvil right now, just like it is. But if you've been with the channel very long, you know I got a surface grinder, and you know that I like to use it. So Let's put a nice slick finish on this over on the surface grinder. Plus we'll also chamfer these edges. 1, 2, 3. As I said, if you've been following this channel very long, you know I got a surface grinder, Harry Super 612. And in recent series of videos, I put stepper motors on the x-axis and the z-axis so that it automatically does the feed left to right and in and out. Someday I may do the y-axis as well, but for right now I think this is enough. But I've got the piece mounted on the mag chuck now, and my indicator shows this is right at 6 inches. This piece, it's just a little short of 6 inches. So let's get the wheel touched off, and I like to do that manually. Alright, it's just barely touching there. So let's come to the back edge. Now let's move over to this corner, and that's going to be, like I say, that's 6 inches, just shy of it. I like to have about 1 inch off of each end to give the stepper motor time to get up to speed before it gets on the workpiece, and then have time to ramp down after it gets off the workpiece. Now up here on the computer, in the upper right hand corner of your screen, is where I'm going to put this information in to tell these stepper motors how many steps to make. That's 2 7/8, which will get the grinding wheel off of this outside edge. So we got 8 inches and 2 7/8. Now I'm going to turn and do a screen capture on the computer. Record that to show you what I'm actually putting in. I think that'll be a whole lot cleaner than trying to zoom the camera in up here. Okay, I'm doing again a screen capture now. The audio may sound a little bit different. If you watch my last video, which I did a recap on the CNC and of the surface grinder, I showed this program. Now since then I've added a couple things to it. Number one, I added an on-screen keyboard. The reason of doing that was to, in the event I ever want to do a touch screen, but I can use this on-screen keyboard with the mouse as well. But our X travel, we determined we wanted 8 inches. The Z travel, we said 2 7/8, so 2.875. Now, we're going to default or use the default that I set up of 100 thousandths for the Z step. That's how much it's going to step on the Z axis each time. And we're going to start with the roughing. What I'm going to do in this segment on the surface grinder is I'm going to get both flats sides, or both of the sides roughed out, and the 2 edges roughed out as well. Then we'll chamfer the edges, all the edges all the way around. Then we'll come back and do our finish, which the X travel will still be 8 inches, but the Z travel will still be the 2.875, but we'll change the step to half this value, 0.05, so we only step over 50 thousandths at the time, and we'll change the speed to a finishing speed. Also, if you saw that video, I've added another button on here. A reset button resets the, show you, if I put in 050 here and choose finishing and got those values in, if I hit the reset, that sets the Z travel back to null as it was, and the Z travel, that was X, I'm sorry, and Z to 2.875. But the reset button puts the Z step back at its default of 100 thousandths and the speed to roughen. So we're set, ready to go now. If I hit the go statement, it stops and asks, is the table in the correct position? So at this point, we're going to go back to the surface grinder and continue this. Back over here on the surface grinder, and I've let it spin up now. Got the oil pumping. Got the stepper motors engaged. The wheels in the correct position. So over here in the upper right hand corner of your screen, I'm going to click this yes where it says is the table in the correct position, and everything should start moving. I let it make a pass or so. You can see the handles moving on the X and the Z axis, and then I'll zoom in a little bit and you see the actual grinding. And of course what the surface grinder is doing now is leveling out everything from the mill, minor chips or whatever under the parallels on the mill. Might have left this a thousandth or two different from one end to the other, but after a couple grinds here, we'll be back in business. That's the whole thing about surface grinding, is that we'll get it flat. Alright, in a moment the computer's going to tell me to get ready.
Get ready.
Then it's going to tell me to
Y down feed.
Y down feed. So I went down 2 thousandths, and I'll probably step down 2 thousandths each time until it touches off all the way and it's cleaned up, and then I'll do a couple passes at 1 thousandths, flip it over, do the other side. I'll put the vise on and turn it up on the edge and do the 2 edges. Right now it's still not touching over here, so we got a little ways to go. Okay, so I've got the workpiece flipped over now, magged down. I've advanced 2 thousandths on the y-axis, where everything on the computer is still set to the still the same 8 inches X travel, 2.875 on the Z, and a Z step of 100 thousandths. Everything's engaged. I'll power on surface grinder, get some coolant on the way, go button, table in the correct position, yes. And I'm going to continue this process on this one until I get down where I'm touching all the way across, taking out any high spots that might have been left on the mill, then do a 1 thousandth down feed single pass. Then I'll bring you back, we'll put the vise on and do the edges. Okay, this should be about the last pass on this side. I'm only going to advance down 1 thousandth on the Y and make a final pass, roughing pass. Alright, when it starts on the pass after telling me to get ready this time, coming back in this direction.
Get ready.
right now. I'm hitting the stop button.
Y down feed, now.
So it is stopped. Again, it does not stop on the workpiece. I programmed it such that it would not dwell on the workpiece. The only way that would happen is if you hit the panic button down here. So we've got a rough and finish now on both of the flats. I'm going to set the vise up here and get set up to surface grind these two edges and possibly even the ends. Okay, just to give you a little idea of the difference in the finishes, these edges right now are straight off the mill. And again, for all intents and purposes, these would have been fine for a bench anvil. This is what I'm calling the roughen finish on the surface grinder. It's got some lines in it. I'm stepping over 100 thousandths at the time, so I'm sure you can't see it on the camera, but I can see that 100 thousandth step over each time. When we get ready to do the finishing, we're going to step over half that much, and we're just going to take it slower. We're going to move the workpiece under the wheel at approximately 2/3 the speed of what it's moving now. So again, I'm going to get set up now to do these edges. Okay, I got the vise on now. Got our workpiece mounted in it up on one edge. Got the wheel in position. Yeah, I've got the wheel in position I want it. We still got 8 inches of X travel, but in Z travel, instead of 2.875, we only need 1 3/8 now, 1.375, and we're going to continue to step over 100 thousandths on our roughing. So click go. It's table in the correct position. It is, and everything is ready. Just need some coolant on. So here we go. Okay, time to rinse and repeat, or release and repeat. Okay, the two edges are done now, so let's see if we can get set up to do the ends. Now, if you're wondering why I use this little spacer in here, piece of 1/4 inch aluminum, this is a cheap little vise right here, and it seems like no matter what piece I have, it always comes out in between two of the notches on the bottom, and I have to do that. Instead of standing this upright in the vise, I'm going to try turning the vise on the side. Alright, let's see how well this works. I'm going to leave that loose to begin with. Alright, we still have our Z travel of 1.375, but our X travel, I'm going to set that down to 4 inches. Tell you one thing I want to test before I actually put that, before I start grinding. This is, I know this is going to mag down. Yeah, that's good and square. I'm happy with that. Okay, I think everything is in position. All right, I'll start out with about 3 thousandths down feed until we touch off all the way, and just like I did on the sides and the edges, when we touch off everywhere,
Get ready.
I'll just come down 1 inch or 1/1000th.
Y down feed, now. Y down feed, now.
Just 1/1000th this time because it touched off on all the passes.
Get ready.
And 1 more thousandth for good measure.
Y down feed, now.
All right, I'm going to flip it around to the other end. Do the other end, and then I'll bring you back when we're ready to put a chamfer on each of the edges. Okay, we've got all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 surfaces rough finished. I actually went ahead while I had it in there, had the vise on, and put a finish on these ends and sides. Not sure if that'll last or not. If it don't, I'll put the vise back on. But what we're going to do now is chamfer these edges. And to do that, I'm going to use what's called, or what I call, the Tom Lipton chamfer block. This is made out of aluminum. However, it's got a steel plate bolted to the bottom, and it sets up over the wheel. And before you panic and lose your lunch, yes, we're going to side wheel, but just enough to put a chamfer on. Now what I'm doing, this recess in the back here, I'm sliding that over the wheel. And actually, if I've got enough room here, I would like to put this against the back. That way I know it's square with the wheel. So we'll mag that down now. And I'll come up just a little bit. I want to be sure that wheel clears. Alright, I don't want this to move at all in the x-axis. So my little lock that I've got down here, I'm going to lock that down. What I call the panic switch here that controls the power supply to the 2 drivers for the stepper motors, I've got it turned off now. So what we're going to do is bring this in and run this against the edge. What I want to do first though, I've got a little block. Let's see where I set it down. Here we go. I take one of these square edges, back this off, I'll put that in, hold that into place, and just gradually move the Z-axis in until I touch this edge. Let's try that right quick. Alright, I'm just touching right there. Now I want to come in, let me get a dial indicator. Okay, there's really nowhere to put a dial indicator that will set in place, and it's really not that critical for what I'm doing right now. But I do know this wheel right here is 200 thousandths per revolution. So that means 100 thousandths would be half a revolution, 50 thousandths a quarter. So I'm going to go what I'm going to guess is about 30 thousandths. When I had the original wheel on here, I could dial up to 30 thousandths. But I believe that will be sufficient to put a chamfer on. So what I'm going to do, I've got that set up now. I'm going to turn it on. And I'm actually going to put a little coolant. Not so much to keep things cool, but to keep this platen right here rinsed off. Alright, let me slide over here to this side. Everything's locked down. It's looking good. I'm liking that. Try another edge. Alright, come into a little issue here. When I try to set it up to do these ends, I'm hitting my chuck. So what I'm going to do is bring this out, but to be sure I keep it square with the workpiece or with the vise, I got just another workpiece over here that I've surface ground. Need to be sure everything's lined back up correctly. Not quite, I need a little wider piece back there. I'll bring you right back when I get all this set up. Okay, if I use my bench anvil I've done before, I know it's square. So I'll set that up. And I need to do that same touch off again. Alright. Now I'll come into what I guesstimate to be about 30 thousandths again. You can see over my shoulder here what I'm doing. Need just a little more. Alright, I'm happy with that. I'm not sure if you can see it, but that put a nice three-way chamfer on each corner. So I'm going to get set back up to put the finish pass on these two sides. The edges are fine. I think they're fine just like they are, but I would like to get a better looking finish on the two flats. Okay, I'm back at the computer monitor now doing the screen dump, and let's get reset up to do the finish passes on the two flat surfaces, the two wide edges. So we'll hit our reset button. X travel is still going to be the 8 inches. Z travel is still going to be the 2.375. But our step is going to be 0.050, half a thousand, 50 thousandths. And our speed is going to be finishing. So that means it's only going to take half a step, half of what we were taking before. And it's going to go at a slower speed. So let's go back to the surface grinder and see that in action. I'll go ahead and hit the go, and when we get over there, we'll confirm that the table's in the correct position. Okay, I've got you a little wider view now of the whole setup. I'm set back up over here. You just saw me on the screenshot getting everything set up. 8 inches of X travel, 2.375 of Z, and we're going to step over on Z 50 thousandths at a time. Now once I know I'm touching everywhere, when I've been down feeding up here, my hair is a little bit different than what I've seen other pictures of others that's been posted. It has the large wheel here, which is 50 thousandths per revolution, graduated in single thousandths. But this wheel, if you lock the big one down, you can turn this little wheel, one turn on it is 1/1000th. Once I know I'm touching off everywhere and have taken care of the scratches of from doing it chamfering, I'm only going to advance this a 1/2 Right now it's going to go fairly slow, but over here on the Raspberry Pi program, we'll say yes, the table's in the correct position, power is on to the drivers. So let's see if it touches now. Note the table is going considerably slower than it was before. And it may not even touch on this pass. If it doesn't, I'll come down 1/1000ths up here. And again, once I know it's touched off all the way across the piece, I'll make that final pass at 1/1000th. I tell you what, I'm gonna stop this and actually go back to my normal speed until I've touched off. I'm just going to advance down a couple thousandths now, since it wasn't touching at all before. All right, that was 1/1000ths on that pass. Now I'm going to come back over here, again change it to 0.05, 50 thousandths step, and finishing. And I'm going to up my travel to 2.5 now, just to be sure I come off this other edge. And by the way, I did do another dress on the wheel before I started this finishing pass. So I'm going to let this finish all the way through, flip it over, do the other side, and then meet you back at the workbench for a quick little recap. 1/1000ths down. When it finishes this pass at a 1/1000ths, I will not advance the Y on the inverse feed of the Z. I'll just let it spark out. Alright, let's wind this little project up. I spent a lot of time on it, but as I've said before, I've got the equipment, I've got the time, I enjoy using the equipment, and I enjoy being out here doing these things, doing little projects for friends and whatever. We took this piece of rusted old torched off railroad track, top rail, and turned it into what I think is a very nice looking piece of steel. Good finish on it. I use my bench anvil a lot just for bradding stuff down. You know, any kind of thing that you might need an anvil for or need a hard surface for. I use mine a lot. I think my friend will get use out of this as well. As I say, I enjoy doing it. You guys take care. I appreciate you watching, your comments, thumbs up, all those things I appreciate, and it helps the algorithm a little bit. So you guys take care, and I'll see you on the next video.